Hello and welcome to Take the Lead. I am your host, Marc Seal, and we are live and fully interactive as we are with you every Thursday at 3 p.m. And I got to tell you how much I'm stoked you're here, first off, and second, I'm stoked to be here. This is a really fun gig, and I'm really enjoying the community that we're starting to build here around something that we all love, which is guitar playing. The premise of our show is really simple. You send in a video of something you're working on, something you need help with. It could be a riff, some technique, a song. And we're going to watch that video together. We're going to break it down. I'm going to help you along in your musical journey, try to help you progress, and we'll have a lot of fun in the process. So it's going to be a lot of fun. I want you to send your videos in. That's critical. So if you got something you're working on, by all means, go to our page there. There's a place to upload your videos, send them in. You could be on next week's show. It'd be awesome to have you. We also have our section called Welcome to the Stage. And this is where you guys get to be the performers. If there's something that you play well that you're interested in playing, you think would inspire the rest of us, we'd like to feature you on that segment as well. And we've got a really cool one today, so I'm excited to share that with you. The interactive part of the show is the fact that there's Q&A going on all the time. And just banter. If you got something funny you want to say, throw it in here. I'll see it on the screen. I'll react to it. But we also have the chat room. So connect with each other, talk in the chat room, and I'll be answering questions in real time. You guys can talk with each other. And we'll just kind of continue to grow this guitar community and have a lot of fun in the process. I'm excited about that. There's also times where we had a poll, and I don't answer the poll just yet because I want to talk about the poll in a little bit, but that's the part where you guys get to take the lead. And by taking the lead, you answer those poll questions, and at the end of the show, you get to select what we do. So you get to basically select how we close out our show. And so I'm really excited for that as well. The good news is I'm back from vacation. I had an awesome trip, went down to Cozumel, Mexico. It was super chill. And with that, I'll probably talk about that later. So take the lead. Let's start now. All right, we are back and we are ready to take the stage or set the stage really. And when we set the stage here, what we're going to do is we're going to watch that first video and we're going to break down what's going on there and figure out what we're going to all learn together today. And the video comes from Laguna Niguel from Scott. He sent in a video a couple days ago. Super stoked on what he selected because it's something near and dear to my heart. And it wasn't planned. It was like, hey, this is what he wanted to do. I said, select whatever you want, and this is what we got. So let's roll Scott's video and see what we're going to play around with today.
Hi Mark, I love the show. I have some questions today related to David Gilmour's solo on the song Mother from the album The Wall. Toward the end of the solo, in the final two bends, there are what appear to be rakes in the tablature. I just can't seem to get them to sound right, both timing or phrasing wise or otherwise. They kind of screw me up. They throw me off a bit there at the end. So I've been skipping them. To me, that still sounds okay, but being a stickler, I like to get them in there. They just kind of happen very quickly, and it's a kind of a weird way to place my fingers there at the end. So also, I just, after those two bends, just kind of the way that solo wraps up, the phrasing's a little tricky. I'm having a bit of a hard time getting that down, but if you could help me with that as well.
Fantastic, Scott. That is super cool. I love that solo. And what I love about it, first off, is just how melodic it is. The tone is great. It's slow enough where you hear every note. Every note has feeling in it. And you're actually playing it really well. And the majority of it, you're pulling off. A couple things we can do to maybe clean it up a little bit and smooth it out. And so I'm going to actually play it. I made a quick loop before we started this. I just threw down the background tracks. I relearned the solo yesterday, so I'll get pretty close on it. But there'll be a handful of things I want to address, and we're going to try and learn this together as a group. So the solo is, let's get the right set here. There you go. right, so that's the solo we're talking about, and let's start by talking about what the chords are underneath it, because you may want to get into your looper and throw that down. It's a nice way to practice it. And one of the benefits to playing to the chords underneath it is it makes it a little bit easier to hear when your pitch is correct on your bends, which is really important. So the chords, it's just literally a G chord, let's see, G chord to a C, back and forth 3 times. G to a C, 3rd time. Up to a D, to a C, back to the G. Okay? So a really simple chord progression. You can throw it down in the looper and then go back and play over it. The other benefit about throwing it into the looper is if you want, you can play that whole chord progression even slower, so you can really work on the phrasing and get all those things down really slowly. So let's get a good sound here for this. What I want to do is I want to break down the entire solo, and we're going to really be dealing with hammer-ons and pull-offs, some bends, some slides, and just some transition from one phrase to the next. I think that's certainly one of the things Gilmour does better than most, is everything is so fluid and very legato sounding as opposed to super staccato most of the time. And so when we start the solo, we're going to start in 12th position. And what you'll also notice is fingerings are really important, and I'm certain that I probably finger this a little bit different than David does, simply because I've made a career out of always playing in position. And position playing simply means 1 finger per fret. I know a lot of guys will always gravitate towards doing their 3rd finger for a full bend when they're doing pentatonic scales. I'll typically use my pinky because that's where it naturally lines up, as you can see there. If I'm in E minor pentatonic or an E minor scale, my pinky is going to be on that 15th fret of that 2nd string, not my 3rd finger. And so I try to stick to that pretty diligently. The solo starts 12th position. I'm going to start with my 1st finger on the 3rd string. We're going to hit that note, and immediately we're going to go to my 2nd finger on the 13th fret of the 2nd string. And we're going to bend that a full step. Now, the first thing you should notice is that when my 1st finger, after I hit that 1st note, it's going to drop down to support the bend that my 2nd finger is doing, right? So I hit this 1st note, and then my 2nd finger comes down, my 1st finger follows immediately, and I'm going to bend and throw a little vibrato in there. I'm going to stay there, then we're going to hit the note again. Now, a lot of times I've seen people go up and back down. It kind of sounds like he stays there, and again, I'm not going to nitpick all that nuance. It's more about the technique and the vibe. Stay there and then come down, hit it again, come down, pull off to 12, which is also why you wanted that 1st finger down, and then hit 13 again. So it sounds like this. Slow one time. Now notice if I'm in 12th position, like we see there, my 3rd finger is going to come up to that 14th fret on the 4th string, and I'm going to do a pull-off. So in order to do a pull-off here, I have to have my 2nd finger already down. It's got to be on that 13th fret. So I'm going to pull off 14 to 13, and then hit 14. Now I've seen people play it where they hit every note, or pull off and hammer on, but it sounds to me probably the way I would play it is a pull-off, and then hit the last note. So you get this. Now, here's another important element. We finish that note, we don't stop, quiet the strings, and then go to the next section. We want to transition much more smooth. So what you might do is do the pull-off, hit that last note, and now my 3rd finger is going to slide off. And as it slides off, I kind of lift my finger up as I'm sliding off. Kind of like being a pilot and all. It's like a plane taking off. And what's funny, okay, go center shot. What I would tell you about that is there's a joke that people told me, and that is, how do you know there's a pilot in the room? He'll tell you. And that's exactly what just happened right there. So I'm kind of goofing myself there. Anyhow, we do that slide, and you kind of lift your finger up. But now when it comes up, we're going to take that same 3rd finger, we'll go back to the close-up, and I'm going to slide that finger from the 6th string up to 12. Right, so we do this nice transition up to 12 on the 6th string to my 1st finger on 10, and again, position playing, if my 3rd finger's on 12, my 1st finger's covering 10, I'm going to go to the 10th fret on the 4th string, back to 12 on the 6th string, back to 10 on the 4th string, slide to 9, which now puts my second finger over the 10th fret, and I'm going to go to the 10th fret 6th string. And a little vibrato, so that sounds like this. And slowly. Okay, so up to that point. Now we're on 10 with our second finger. Let's go ahead and put our first finger down on the 7th fret and just move those down a whole step or 2 frets. So now my second finger's on 8 and my first finger's on 7. And he does kind of that same thing where he's going to pull off 8 to 7, hit 8, let it ring. Then we're going to hit 8 again, leaving our first finger down to help support the bend. We're going to hit 8, pull it down and bend it a full step, and then come back up. So it sounds like this. Again, sliding off, and as we slide off, that note dissipates, and we're sliding off because we're going to turn around and slide right back up. This time it's going to be our first finger. I noticed, Scott, when you were doing the video, you were playing the notes. You did some kind of a thing where you're playing the notes, but it's actually he slides up, and we'll do what's called an arbitrary slide. There's no definitive starting point, but I'm going to start, somewhere on the 2nd, 3rd, 4th fret. You're not going to listen to that note. I don't want to hear a note and then slide up. It's just like we kind of had our finger take off. We're going to kind of do the same thing when now we're landing it as we go up. And I'm going to slide up to 7 with my first finger on the 3rd string. So first finger, slide to the 7th fret, 3rd string. As I get there, and I can kind of even have my second finger kind of slide up with it, because I'm going to hit that 8th fret on the 2nd string, back to 7. So you get this. Okay, so we get this. It's kind of fast. Now here's one time where I kind of break my own rule. My third finger is going to jump to this 10th fret on the 2nd string, and this is really cool what he does here. He bends the note up a full step, and then he comes down a half step, so it's technically out of key. And then he hits it back up a full step. So he gets this. So when I first played at the beginning of the show, it sounded like a mistake, but it wasn't. It's exactly what he did. So it goes like this. And then again, we can take this note either from the natural position, bend it up a full step and come down and pull off to 8, or we can stay up there and hit it and come down and pull off to 8, and then grab the 8 on the 1st string. So it sounds like this. So it's kind of fast. There's 4 notes. 1, 2, 3, 4 notes there. So up, down, 8 on the 2nd, 8 on the 1st. So up to that point. And now our second finger is already over that 9th fret on the 3rd string. So what we're going to do here is we're going to put that up again. Our first finger is going to kind of pilot behind it and stay on the 8th fret, so we can do it in that same pull off, 9 pull off to 8 on the 3rd string, and then hit 9. So in each one of those riffs, right, we got this right here. It's a pull off, hit. Same thing here, pull off, hit. Pull off, hit. So he kind of does that same technique. And if you want to hit all 3 of those notes, fine. If you want to pull off, hammer on, that's cool too. But I think it sounds pretty fluid that way, but you also get some pretty good definition out of it. So whole thing up to that point, and then we're going to talk about the rakes, which is where a big part of his question was. So it starts here. Okay, so here's the rakes that we're looking at, and it's cool. It's if you know your F major chord, which is that 3, 2, 1, 1, where you're barring your first finger, we're just taking that F chord and we're moving it up here so that it's a D major chord. So you have F, G, A, B, C, D, right? And our third finger is on that D on the 4th string. That's our root note. So there's your chord, and the way that rakes work, and most people can get one of the 2 techniques correct. So the first is we want to be able to roll our fingers, right? I want to hit that first note, hit the second note, hit the third, and then roll. So do a close-up with the left hand, and you can stay close-up for this section. We're gonna do roll, right? I don't want a chord like that per se, right? But now when people roll their fingers, what we tend to see happen is we tend to pluck each note with my right hand. This over here, right? I'm gonna go, right? But that's not a rake. A rake is we're gonna take the pick and we're gonna place it on the string and just literally, instead of plucking, we're gonna push. It's like a slow strum, really, right? Individual notes so that each string is what the rake is. Now the challenge is, if we do our fingers here where we roll them, we tend to want to pluck, or if we hold a chord, then we can rake it, but that's just a strum. The challenge is to do both. So the way to practice that is to have just your third finger down, hit that note and push the pick into the next string and stop there. Let the string stop the pick, then put your second finger down, do the same thing. And then push into the second string. Now put my first finger down, push in, and then roll. So notice my right hand, my picking hand, is very flat, and yet my left hand is rolling. Right, it's that whole arpeggio thing, right? But this, what's cool is it doesn't have to be super, super clean. This is kind of just a feel. And what he does that's really cool is on the last part of that, he hits that note, where he roll, it goes up, and then he grabs the 12th fret on the first string with an upstroke, and kind of just the pick snaps back. And he bends a full step. As it comes down, before it quite gets to that 12th fret natural note, he switches to the 10th fret. So you get this. Or. Now the cool thing is, if you learn that one phrase, it's really simple because the next phrase is identical. You're just simply going to slide your hand down a whole step. So now we're doing a C major, same thing. Okay, so. And here you have a couple of choices. I play it really legato. I know you could pick every note and maybe slide that last one, and maybe that's what he does. I didn't nitpick it that much, like I said, but I like to play it really legato, and that's a pretty common lick right there. So what I would do is, if I'm ending on that 8th fret, I might hit that note one more time, slide to 7, then do a pull off 8 to 7, keeps it smooth. Take my pick, I'm going to rake into that 8th fret on the 2nd string. And again, I'm pulling the pick up, 7th fret 3rd string, rake, slide, slide, and then hit. So that rake is as you're doing slide 8 to 7, 8, 7 on the first string, 8 on the 2nd, 7 on the 3rd, slide to 5, slide to 4, and then grab that 4th string on the 5th fret. That's your final G there. So you get this. Okay, slowly that phrasing. Real smooth. And that's a phrase right there. I would practice that, just that one phrase. Right, make an exercise out of it. Same with this one. And that's one of the cool things about these solos is you can take any individual riff within that solo or any section of it and make exercises out of it. And that's something I do really often with my students, is I try to find, hey, what can I learn from a particular riff that sounds cool, and put it into practice, and it will ultimately manifest itself into your playing so that you can use it on any other phrase that you want to play it on. And overall, that's just a really, really cool solo to do. So you guys, I want you all try it, and if you guys, somebody wants to do a great performance of it, send us in a video of you playing it if you got it dialed. Maybe we'll play that in the future Welcome to the Stage segment, and you can share it with the world how much progress you're making on the whole thing. So with that, I want to take a couple of questions. I want to also thank Scott. Super cool of you sending that video in. And again, remind you guys, send in a video of something you're working on, and I'll break it down just like we did that. That would be super cool. And before we take questions, I do want to remind you about the poll. So we have 3 poll questions. Where are they? Okay. So the poll options today, and they here at FUGU, they make these up a lot of times, so that I got to kind of keep me on my toes. So the first one, still feeling loopy. Okay, well, we're going to do a little loop section in a little while. And that's going to be an opportunity where we might expand on talking more about the loop pedal. So that's what feeling loopy is all about. my vacation song. When I was on vacation, I ended up writing a really cool song, just kind of tropical. It was very inspired, and I'll kind of share the story of how that came about. Or inspired by Pink Floyd, one of my biggest influences, and I thought I'd give you guys some things I kind of love about Pink Floyd, but also maybe give you some of my favorite tracks and cuts and things you might want to go listen to if you're not well-versed in Pink Floyd's catalog. There's a lot of good stuff there. So vote on the poll today. We'd love to see what you guys want to see for that last section, and we'll make that happen. But as far as questions, let's see what we got here. We've got from Cruiser09, does it matter if I use my right hand or left hand to mute the strings for a rake? Let me figure out. I'm not actually sure. I'd have to see what I'm doing. And here's another great point, right? I don't know the answer to that off the top of my head. What I will often do when I'm playing is kind of self-assess and see what I would do. When I'm doing the rake here on this particular song, I've got my right hand palm muting the strings a little bit, and I'm rolling here. So I'm getting a little bit of that. So a lot of times it'll be right hand if I want it more muted. If I don't want it muted, then obviously I'm not going to mute it at all. But what I am going to do to keep strings quiet is it's going to be left hand. My first finger's kind of draped across those strings so that when I start there, it's not off. It's actually keeping all the strings below that fourth string quiet by just kind of draped over there but not pressing. So in almost every case of muting, it's a combination of right hand, left hand, and I will elaborate on that for 1 second. I do, however, plan to do a more detailed approach to that, but typically the way that I deal with muting is anything that is the note I'm playing, the string above it, or all the strings below it is typically my first finger on my left hand's keeping those strings quiet. Okay? Everything on the everything above the string above the note I'm playing is right hand over here, right? Kind of hear the record scratch there. It's because my palm's on those strings, right? And the reason I have my first finger, the tip of it, always butt up against the string above the string I'm playing is because I want a little bit of margin in there for my hand over here to not accidentally mute the string. If I'm trying to have my right hand, say for example, mute out the 6th, the 5th, and the 4th string, and I'm playing the 3rd string, there's a chance I might run into that 3rd string. But if my left hand covers that 4th string, then I can bring my right hand further off of it so that the 4th string's still muted, but my right hand doesn't really run the risk of muting out the note I'm trying to have you hear. And so that's just a habit. I do it with power chords also. You may notice if I do a power chord, always the tip of my first finger is on that 6th string. If I'm playing a 5th string power chord and so forth and so on, it's always butted up against the string above it, if at all possible. And that's basically my safety net. When I think of muting, I'm trying to not hit the strings I don't want to hit with my pick, and I'm trying to have the safety net with my left hand creating some of the muting. So it's a combination of everything, and we'll break it down into small exercises that you can work on to work on each hand individually. Great question though. Let's see what else we have. I keep muting the note I'm trying to end on. It's my timing technique or both. That's from Stratocast. Cool name. Yeah, you know, a lot of times we're just trying to get through the phrase, and so the pick comes down, and by the time we get there, our hand's still muting there. One of the things you can do to mitigate that is as you're coming down, don't be afraid of the last two notes being kind of sloppy. As I come down, when I get to that 2nd string, I'm already bringing my hand off. Right? So you can kind of leave the muting slightly early, because really what people are going to hear, they're going to hear you do the rake, and they're going to hear that note. So it doesn't matter if it's kind of sloppy at the end. And in time, as you continue to play, it will clean itself up. It's just a matter of repetition. And it's amazing how the subconscious mind fixes a lot of these things. It's really cool. Great question. What kind of exercise do you recommend? I like walking the dog. Swimming. No, I'm just kidding. Exercise. I'm assuming you're talking about a raking exercise. That's from JW. I think the best way to start, what I started with when I was first raking, was just trying to do a really simple 3-note pattern. Maybe 12th fret on the 3rd string, and then do a diagonal kind of a A minor or a G minor shape, or I'm going to do 12, 11, 10. And I would sit there, and first thing I would do is I would mute this heavily with my right hand, hold the chord in place, and I would learn just how to control the pick. So I'm not plucking like this. I don't want the pick not coming off, but rather pushing into the string. And I would try to get that where I could get the notes really even in intervals, right? 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, or triple it, triple it, triple it. Once I got that where I kind of felt comfortable with my right hand, then I would take this hand and I would learn how to do the rolling. And then I would try to put the two together. When I put the two together, it would be setting the pick on the string before I even started, having just my third finger down, and then push into the second string, change fingers, push into the first string, change fingers. And then come back the same way. Notice also when I'm raking at least, it's not arm. I see people try to like muscle it like that. I don't have any control doing that. It's all wrist. So if you see, let's see. Notice my hand is staying in one place, right? All that stuff that I'm doing right there, it's all very wrist and very anchored, and it has to be that way for me to have any form of accuracy. And to be honest with you, I don't do a ton of raking anymore. You know, like that kind of raking, the shred stuff. I've got a few solos on my earlier records where I did some of that stuff, but to me, it's not quite so musical anymore. When I hear it, it just sounds like an arpeggio. It doesn't sound very musical to me. It's kind of flashy and kind of cool, but I think the way Gilmour does it, say on the beginning of Comfortably Numb, where he just, that's just that little pickup note. I think that's way cooler, what he does at the end of Mother. Right? That's a really cool use of it, I think. But there's nothing wrong with playing arpeggios. It's nice to have the skill set. But just don't abuse it because it's been abused, and I think a lot of us are tired of it. Cool questions. What else? We got a couple more. How do you look so cool when playing guitar? Well, I think we all know that's entirely not true, so clearly sarcasm is your gift, Mr. Anonymous. I appreciate that. Thanks a lot. Can you give tips for playing the Can't Stop riff by the Chili Peppers? Yes, that's, you know, I will break that down on another episode because that's actually a riff I would use for that muting thing. It's kind of like Pride and Joy. Where you have to mute all the strings out while hitting all the strings, but only hearing one note. The Can't Stop riff, what's interesting about that is if you just play it single notes, so I can get a close up of my hands here, I've seen people play where it's all downstrokes, right? But when you do that, your hand is speeding up and slowing down, so your timing is going to be pretty off. There's not really a lot of groove to that. So if you were to put in the right picking pattern, think about when you strum a guitar, how your arm's always going one speed. That's kind of what you want here. And if I do that, I'm going to realize it's down, 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 up, down, up, 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 down, up. That's the right pattern. Down, 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 up, down, up, up. Right? And then lastly, it's that whole thing back to my first finger here, keeping everything quiet, the note above and everything below it, and then right hand also being a part of it, and then hitting all of the strings. But notice if I hit the 7th fret, I don't hear the 6th, I hear the 5th, I don't hear anything else. So I hit all 6 strings, I'm only hearing the one note I want to hear, right? But you hear all that percussive clicking of the pick hitting all the other strings. So you hit that. Right, so that's a great technique. We'll talk much more about muting on another show. It sounds like you guys are interested in that topic, so about these questions, so that's cool. All right, I think we're done with questions for now. We're going to jump into our Welcome to the Stage segment. I'm really excited to share this one with you. Over the last 13 years, over 14 years that I was doing the Taylor stuff, going on the road being a product specialist, I was in really great company with the incredible Wayne Johnson and with Kenny Echizen, just two amazing guitar players. The three of us literally canvassed the world at times to do road shows and NAMM shows and demos for Taylor. Kenny's just an incredible player. Every time I watch him play, I get sick to my stomach and, no, I'm just kidding. I just mind blown. He's a great player, great guy, super cool hang. And he's still doing a ton of product specialist work, videos for, I think, Vox and Blackstar and a bunch of different companies. But he's just an all-around great player, does tons of different gigs, and I wanted to feature him today. I texted him a while back and said, hey, any chance you want to throw a video our way? He was super gracious to do that. If you get a chance, you're going to want to follow him on Instagram. I think we'll have those links up for you. But check out Kenny. He's just a good dude. That was just awesome, man. Super tasty. Put me in a great mood. I'm all chill now, zenned out. Really great job, Kenny. Appreciate it. If you guys have not, if you didn't just go immediately and sign up for his Instagram or friend him on Instagram, I don't even know what the terminology is. I should probably figure that out. Go check out his Instagram account, and he's going to be posting a lot more stuff. He's doing tons of videos, and they're always super high quality, very inspirational, and he's got some of the best rock faces you've ever seen a guitar player have. So good stuff. Thanks, Ken. All right, so I got a comment from my buddy Aaron Browering. What's up, Aaron? He says, a great breakdown of Mother, such a tasty lead. Nice intro to the show. You nailed it. Melodic tasty, so that's even applicable to us mere guitar mortals. Great stuff, my friend. And that's funny because you guys saw Aaron a couple weeks ago on the show. He did the Comfortably Numb solo, and he's in the Pink Floyd tribute band. So high praise. Thanks, man. I appreciate that a lot. Okay, so the feeling loopy section. I want to start a new section that I think on an ongoing basis, I want to start using the loop pedal more on these shows, whether intros or teaching you guys loops, or even just teaching you how to use them. I've often told my students, I think the single greatest innovation for somebody learning how to play a guitar is the loop pedal, right? And the reason being, it's first off, it forces you to have good timing, right? It helps you to develop good timing, being able to click pedals in time, right? Like you might have to do for a delay pedal or switching a patch in a song. So it forces you to use your feet a little bit more, get the tap dancing thing going. That's important. The other thing that's great about it though is it gives you the ability to hear whatever it is you're playing over the other parts are being played, and you can play them in different keys and at different tempos, right? So if you're working on the Mother solo, for example, you want to slow it way down, you can play the solo to the right chords and all that, but just slower at the pace you're working and build your speed back up. And that's kind of a cool thing, rather than going and trying to grab the song and playing to Gilmour solo and slowing it down and all that. You just throw in a quick loop. It's also one of the greatest writing tools in the world. I could sit here and just quickly throw down a loop, switch patches, and I just finished telling you I never do arpeggios, and I just did it. That's cool. But the point is, you can just throw something down that quick and then jam over it, and you get bored, you move on to something else. It's a great way to practice playing modes, because you can throw down a basic, just a basic neutral chord, a power chord, and try playing different modes over it, or different things like that. So it's really cool. And the most important part about it is it's somebody that's exactly as good as you are, that will play all the parts you don't want to play for as long as you want them to play them. It's hard to say, but I think that made sense. So basically, you don't want to just sit and strum a G to a C chord all day long. That thing will do it for you, and that player is exactly as good as you are because you're the guy doing it. So if you don't have a loop pedal, I highly recommend you getting one. Get something like a Ditto, just a little single Ditto. There's a pile of different ones you can use that are inexpensive. I'm just using mine built into the AX8, and as we go into these shows down the road, I'm going to really kind of show you some of the neat features that I can do on here with some panning and different tones and that type of thing. But even just a straight loop pedal with just one sound is still a great opportunity to practice your timing, your writing, and then also just improvising, jamming, just practicing your scales over different chord progressions. It's really an important thing to have. So one little trick I was going to show you guys today with the loop pedal today was, I was working on thirds and building chords, and we'll get into a theory lesson another time, but if I look at a C major scale, the way you play a C major scale is we're going to play starting on the 3rd fret. So our 2nd finger, we're going to play 3rd fret to 5th fret. On the 4th string, we're going to play 2, 3, 5. And on the 3rd string, we're going to play 2, 4, 5. So we're really just playing C, D, E, F, G, A, B, C, right? So I'm going to put that into the loop for a second. Okay, so we have that in the loop, but then what I can do is I can say, okay, I want to hear what a harmony sounds like over that. And a harmony is when we play multiple notes on top of each other, right? So that would say our scale is our melody. I'm going to go up a third. So all I have to do is go to my scale, 1, 2, 3, start on the 3rd note up. Whenever you hear somebody singing a third or playing a third above, all they're doing is going to the 3rd up from whatever note the melody is in the scale of the key they're in. And that sounds complex, but it's really simple. If here's my scale, right, my C major, if I start on the 3rd note, you're going to hear what a third sounds like. Check this out. Right? So all of a sudden it sounds like the Allman Brothers, or whatever third harmony or that you've heard before. That's kind of what it has, that vibe. You can also hear chords develop, and it's just a great ear training thing. So when I started on that third, I started on an E. Well, I'm going to move that up. And I'm going to basically play the key of C major starting on an E. So I'm going to add that to this. I'm going to actually overdub right now if that's cool. Let's see. Now they're both there, okay? So the next thing I can do, if I want to hear triads in that whole scale, meaning I want to hear each chord, I want to hear C major, D minor, E minor, F major, G major, A minor, B diminished, and C, all I'm going to do there is I'm now going to go to the fifth. Well, the fifth note is a G. So now I'm going to play my C major scale, but I'm going to start on a G, which sounds like that. If I put all that together, it's not very musical, but it's a great exercise to practice learning your scales from different starting points, to hear what thirds sound like. You know, if you want to just play something that sounds cool, you think like, let's see, Iron Maiden. I love this one. If we do, and throw a harmony. Right? And so when you hear these bands that have multiple guitar players, that's what they're doing. One's playing a melody, one's playing often a third up or a fifth up, and it just sounds cool. You know, Pink Floyd's got a bunch of it, especially if you listen to the Animals record. Really cool stuff. So that's our filling loopy section, and what we're going to do is moving forward, I really like that section. I want to teach you guys different loops from time to time, different ideas, ways to use the loop. I think at some point we're probably going to throw some camera over here and get it great on top of my foot shot, and you get a better idea of how to do it. And that's going to be really helpful because there are some tips and tricks that you can use to creating seamless loops that sound really super good. So I think what we're going to do is, if there's no questions, I think we have a Q&A section next. I'm not sure if we have any other questions right now, or if I got them all earlier. But I'm going to set up my pedal board for our next section, which will ultimately be Take the Lead. So from Scott, what effects, Scott, I'm assuming Scott, who did our video today, it's good to see you, bud. Thanks for tuning in. What effects pedal are you using on the solo to give it that classic David Gilmour sound? Okay, let's talk about that. I had two choices, and before the show, I didn't listen to it carefully enough to know exactly what his sound was on this particular song. I literally listened to it on the way in to remind myself. And the way I did the demo, I had a fair amount of distortion, a lot of gain, and I think I started on my humbucking pickup at the beginning. So a lot of distortion and just a fair amount of reverb on this one. So you can hear the verb. You could add some delay if you want it, but I think it's just verb on that. Aaron Broering in the chat room, if he's on, might answer that question. He knows this stuff really well. So with a lot of distortion, you get that sustain. Right? Goes for days. Go out and have a bite and come back and it's still sustaining. All right, here's a drive pedal though. So here's more of an overdrive. Instead of a distortion, here's more of an overdrive. It's not quite as gainy, but sounds probably a little more like what he does. It's somewhere in between the two. If I throw on a little chorus and a little delay, you kind of get that. That same setting with a heavier drive. And you may notice also I'm constantly turning my volume off when I'm not playing. That's to keep the noise out. But you'll also notice I switch my pickups. When I want that more round, kind of bubble popping sound, I'll go neck pickup. It's fatter, rounder. And when I do some rakes like that, and you'll really notice it without the chorus and with just more of a drive. So here's humbucker. A little brighter, a little warmer. If you use one of the single coils or the split settings, a little chimier. So there's a variety of different sounds. At the end of the day, this is something that's really true of me. I don't try to replicate other people's sounds very accurately. In fact, Aaron and I have this conversation a lot. He nails the Pink Floyd sounds really, really well. I just try to get close, but I try to get close with sounds that I'm comfortable with, that I can control. And they still sound like me playing somebody else's music. So that's kind of how I approach it. It's super, super subjective. You know, kind of figure out whatever you want, but at the end of the day, some kind of a drive to a distortion with some verb on that particular solo. Long answer. What kind of looper is best for a really small setup? I think the TC Electronic Ditto is by far the best. Single pedal, double click it when you want to stop. You hit it once to record, once to play, overdub. It's real simple. It gets pretty quick there. From Lazy Train, cool name. Can he play so smooth and buttery? Any tips how I can get a sound like that in his video? The tip that I would give you on that would be to friend him on Instagram and hit him up. He's a super cool guy, and I'm sure he'd be glad to tell you what he was doing there. And you may have noticed he had an amp that has quite a bit of different sounds on it with different settings for that video. And he also had 25 guitars, it seemed like. So that's something, hit him up, see what he did on that. It's usually just a little bit of gain, some verb, and roll some of the highs off so it's not too biting. I think that tends to get a pretty smooth tone. Anything exciting happened in Mexico? Artie? It was just an amazing, relaxing time. I really had a great time and enjoyed myself immensely, and I came back pretty refreshed, so that was cool. And from Terrence C, when you teach, do your students ever ask you for instruction on how to use different pedals? Yeah, I get that all the time. And one of the things I do that's kind of neat is I will take my Axe effects and I will plug it into my computer. And if I'm doing a Zoom call, I can actually share my interface and go into a pedal and explain what the different parameters do while I'm demoing, and they can hear it. So they'll have headphones on, they can hear the effect as I tweak the knobs and I explain what they do. That's really helpful. And another thing I do is people with Line 6 and with Axe effects, we'll do Zoom lessons where they will share their UI, and I'll actually program their board remotely, and they'll be playing guitar and they'll say, I want this, I want that, and I'll start tweaking their settings because I kind of know how to get there pretty quickly, and it comes across on there and they save it and then they've got their patch made. So yeah, I do a lot of instruction on pedals, and and primarily with digital pedals because it's just so much easier virtually. But as far as if I have a student in my shop, yeah, we'll look at my pedal board, which I have a lot of analog pedals down there, and I'll kind of go through the same thing. It's just harder to bend down and try to let them see what's going on. I love the interfaces because you can see it laid out really comfortably. How important is music theory for learning guitar? From Busy Bee. My thought on that is there's two people that play a guitar. There's guitar players and there's musicians, right? If you play guitar, it's kind of Simon Says. I taught you how to play Mother today. You can see the video and go figure out how to do it. You don't know that this is a C you're bending up to a D on that second note, or you don't know, that was a D chord on that rake, except I told you, right? But if you understand music theory, you would know, these notes are a triad, and this root note on this D chord is going to give us that, or you would know how to find your notes and know what notes are in key together and what's in scale. So I think depending upon how far you want to take it, if you want to be serious about it and sound good and have a lot more possibilities to your playing, I think it's really important. I kind of liken it like this, right? If you learn a few chords and you learn a couple scales and you can kind of get through it, that's super cool. That's like having red, green, and blue in your color palette to paint. But as you start to learn music theory, you start getting chartreuse and periwinkle and sky and cinnamon and whatever the Crayola crayon box colors are. You just have a lot more to color with, and it makes it a lot more interesting, I think, for the listener, and a lot more fun to explore, especially in the early phases of finger painting on guitar when you're writing songs. So great questions. We're going to jump into the You Take the Lead segment, and so I think what's the winner here? My Vacation Song is in the lead. Wow, okay. So for You Take the Lead, you guys want to hear my vacation song? I'm going to tell you a quick story about it. And it was just really incredible. So, as I'm sitting there looking out, I'm seeing palm fronds from the swaying trees, the sun's there, the water, I hear the waves lapping on the beach. There's good cocktails and good food, and the breeze is blowing, and the sun's out, and there's clouds, they come and they go. So I wrote this really cool kind of a love song. I'm not going to tell you the lyrics because it's pretty cheesy, but it's really fun. But musically, I was trying to capture, what does it sound like to be in the tropics? And I was playing on a Taylor Guitars GS Mini, so I'm on a little acoustic guitar, and I'm just sitting there, no pick, just kind of finger picking. And I wrote this cool little song, and when it's all done, I'll play it for you guys one of these days because I really did like it. So I thought, well, I want something super happy, and when I think of happy, obviously I'm going to think of a major chord, and in this case, I thought of a major 7 chord. Okay, get some kind of I'm going to do drop D actually. So I went with like a D major 7. It just kind of starts off happy. And I went to this kind of a C over D. And I went to this G, and I did a parallel major minor, so to a G minor, up to a D sus, and so forth and so on. So I just kind of etched out, but then I started putting the melody and got into the finger picking part of it. And I created this riff. It goes like this, and the lyrics kind of parrot this, but it goes out. First lyric though is cool. What would you say to a tropical getaway? Right? It's like the Love Boat. It's freaking awesome. Anyhow, that's as much as you get for today. But yeah, it was just, I think the point of that was that when you go places, one, it's nice to be able to take a guitar. And this is not a plug for Taylor, but really that Taylor GS Mini, I take it whenever I go on vacation. I take it everywhere I go because you never know when inspiration is going to hit. Second to that, it's really neat to go other places with a guitar if you haven't done so, because you're opened up to all these different sensations and senses and things that you're not, at home. So when you sit at home and you get writer's block and you're like, gosh, I can't write anything, I can't think of anything to write, and you're doing the same thing over and over again, take your guitar, go to the beach, go out to the desert, go to, a campsite, go get outside is often really, really beneficial to getting some kind of new inspiration. Or even just go somewhere and sit on a hill and overlook a city or something like that. But I think the point of that is I love inspiration. I don't write a ton of songs anymore because I've got a pretty busy life. But when I get that opportunity, it's always really fun. And then when you have something that's so beautiful and inspirational, it makes it really easy to do so. So that was my vacation story on my songwriting. And I think we're pretty much be done with today's show. What I would like to do is, first off, if you can, please tell people about the show. I really want to grow this thing over the next few months and just build a community and all kind of hang out. Friend me. Is it friending? Somebody's got to tell me. Somebody in text, or if you're on there, tell me. Is it friends on Instagram? Is it are you connected? I don't know what the terminology is, but whatever it is, like me on at Guitar Seal on Instagram or Take the Lead Official. Connect with me there is really what I'm getting at. And I'm going to be posting more and more things from behind the scenes here. And other than that, I will see you guys back next week. Do remember, if you can, send in a video. Scott did a great job. Mike did a great job. Jaden, everybody that's been a part of the show really did a great job, and they've all learned something from it. You could be next, so send in your video, and I'll be looking at them this week, and we'll have a great show for next week. I'm going to be on the chat room in just a few minutes, so we're going to just kind of shut things down. I'll get on the chat and I'll at least see how you guys are doing. If you have questions for me, feel free to ask them there. And other than that, have an awesome week, and thanks again for tuning in. Appreciate it. Take care of yourselves.